you looking for a different level of truth about your challenges and struggles? Then be a part of the Yes and podcast, hosted by empowerment strategist and trauma specialist Jennifer Whitaker. Every Wednesday, we challenge conventional thinking on topics like trauma, healing, and so much more. Learn life lessons and great nuggets of wisdom from guests who've moved through their pain and suffering to discover a new purpose in life. Now, here's your host, Jennifer Whitaker.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Yes And. I'm your host, Jennifer Whitaker. Our guest this week is Christian Modjaiso. Christian is the founder and CEO of a company called Observe, and Christian is from the Democratic Republic of Congo in Africa. And his company is designed to help people who are extremely stressed learn to deal with their stress. And kind of like me, Christian is no stranger to this type of stress. So a lot of what he's doing in his practice, he learned from personal experience in his own life. Christian, welcome to the show. It's an honor to have you here today.
Yeah, Jennifer, thank you very much. I'm very excited to be here talking to you.
Yeah. And so before we really get rolling, I want to let all of our viewers and listeners know that you've already shared with me that the electric where you are is not as reliable. So if for some reason we get booted off the show, we're going to do our best to, get things rolling again. And we'll just see how it goes, because there are no guarantees that the connection will survive the whole episode today.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's why you got to listen or watch as much as you can.
Exactly. So, Christian, tell us a little bit about, before we really get into this, tell us a little bit about where you live and the community that you live in. Because I think that a lot of times, it's really easy for people like me and my friends and my neighbors just to get wrapped up in our little suburban lifestyles and not realize that there are both differences and huge similarities and different places around the world.
Oh, okay. So as you mentioned, I'm from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Right now I'm living in so I usually have a debate with my relatives. My mom insists it's a town. I say it's a village. All right. So that's the battle. All right. So I'm going to say a small town to make mom happy. Okay. So I live in a small town in the southeast of Congo.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a rural area really, right? So there's construction going on that's really rapid, but you also have the things like mud huts, right? Like houses that are made of mud, and next to them you have you can have like story buildings made of concrete. So there's people here living extremely well. And like, for example, right now where I'm living, my next door neighbors, right, the financial kind of situation is totally different, They're struggling way more than, let's say, I am right now. And so this is part of the setup. We speak a couple of languages here, French mostly. French, that's the official language in Congo and where I live. And then people use Swahili, Congolese version of Swahili, and other local languages like Lingala. So I stayed in the US for about 5 years. I was in California for 5 years before coming back here. So, after living in California with all these concrete buildings, everything so organized, it's kind of exciting, This place is like, every day is an adventure. So, when I was in California for 5 years, I think I never saw a single power cut when I was there. But here, power cuts are a real thing. Electricity comes on and off randomly, not really predictable, right? So basically what we do is we buy solar panels. So you put solar panels at the top of the building, and then you rely on solar power. Like right now I'm using solar power because, right, so the electricity is not so reliable, right?
Okay.
The city had to find solutions rather than depending on, let's say, government electricity. Because electricity is done by the government.
Yeah. And I'm curious, because I know that you and I have talked a little bit before recording. Is that What is that a layer of what's feeding into why people are so stressed where you are? The random power cuts?
No, 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 no,
Oh,
no,
it's not?
no.
Okay.
It's like this is one of the things. So I think the human being needs a combination of two things: chaos and order.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you have too much order, there's a problem. Too much chaos, there's a problem, right?
Bingo.
So in a place like California, or the parts of the states where I visited, everything was so organized. Every street is labeled. There's a bunch of arrows directing you to where the bathroom is. Everything is so organized, and so people get so freaked out when something unexpected happens, like the power going off.
Mm-hmm.
But over here, it's like, I mean, there's a level of order, but there's also a level of chaos as well. So
Mm-hmm.
people don't get stressed out really over things like electricity,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, in the States, of course, I think when I was a student, we used to be sent emails indicating when the power will be off. The
Mm-hmm.
power will be off next week on Wednesday at such and such a time, so be
Mm-hmm.
prepared, or the water will be off. But here, no such warning, but you just get used to the chaos and expect that every day is an adventure.
Yeah. Right. And that attitude of getting used to the chaos and seeing every day as an adventure, that's a resilience building attitude. I love it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
All humans are capable of it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the environment makes it easier when things are not so expected, like, I mean, one of the other interesting things. So, oh, yeah, I'm going to do some comparisons. So, when I was in the States, for example, it was always important to warn someone before you come to their house.
Mm-hmm.
So I could be like, hey, I'll be at your house on Friday at 1 p.m. Oh, I'll be at your house on Friday at 3 p.m. And yeah, I won't be eating any lunch, so don't prepare any lunch for me, right? So
Mm-hmm.
these are kind of the things I used to do when I was in the States. But over here, that doesn't happen. So like in the house, we always cook maybe 4 or 5 extra like plates of
Mm-hmm.
food, right? Because an uncle can randomly drop by without telling you, right? And you have to welcome him and talk to him and be excited to see him. So
Mm-hmm.
it's actually exciting to have people drop by without having planned for them.
Mm-hmm.
Or it can also be frustrating if you're used to the organized way of the Western world.
Yeah. And in America, I think there's more frustration. Like a lot of people here don't even want somebody to ring our doorbell, let alone just randomly drop by. It's yeah, and I get what you're saying, because when I was a kid, that was the environment I grew up in. You just like kind of went down the road to your friend's house and you just showed up.
Yeah.
Unless you had to get permission from your parents to go first. Sometimes there were the parents talking, saying, hey, is it okay if Jennifer comes over? But if I had my way, I'd just get on my bike and go.
Yep. That's right.
And
Yeah.
I did that a lot as a kid. Yeah. So, Christian, tell us a little bit about Observe. You're the founder and CEO of a company called Observe. And I did notice that all of the letters are capitalized in the name of your company. So tell us a little bit about that and how you came up with the method that you're using to work with people.
Hmm. Okay. I mean, okay. I don't know why I chose to make it capital.
Ah,
Uh,
okay.
yeah. It wasn't. I don't think it was yeah. I just thought, well, it's the name of the company. Let's make it capital. But
Got it.
the
I did. Okay.
capital, yeah. So the
Okay.
capital is not really a major factor, but
Okay.
the
Fair enough.
really cool thing about this company is that it does exactly what the name says, right? It's
Mhm.
all about observation. And
Okay.
so basically what the company is set up to help extremely stressed people to deal with their stress, but by observing it for themselves, right? So the idea is that if you're stressed out by some problem, maybe you're not able to get a promotion at work, you're afraid that your boyfriend may leave you, something like that,
Mhm.
then basically what we do is we observe the reality of that situation, right? Observe the problem, what's really going on, and then the observations tell us what needs to be done, right? So, and usually what I found is that whenever I deal with the reality of my problem, the solution that comes out is usually fits perfectly. There's a difference between getting a solution that came from a textbook or from an expert and a solution that came from like your own situation,
Right.
right?
Bingo.
So yes, yes. right? So want reality-based solutions that fit,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I found out that the way that happens, how do you get a solution that fits? I realized that what you really have to do is to pay total attention to whatever the situation is. So, for example, in my case, I used to have a lot of angry outbursts, right? Just get angry,
Mm-hmm.
and so sometimes I'd yell at people, right, or just give them a really hard time, get into fights that way because I got really angry,
Yeah, I
right?
can
So one
relate to
of
that.
yes. So
Yeah.
not physical fights. I mean, I'm not. Yeah, I never really used a physical fight as a way to solve problems,
Mm-hmm.
but certainly verbal fights. Look for precisely what
Mm-hmm.
the most hurtful thing to say is and say that.
Mm-hmm.
That's, those I did, right? So, I mean, at some point I found myself extremely angry. Um, and I decided, hey, you know what? Let me sit down and just observe the anger. This is something I'd never really done before,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I just sat down with my back straight and closed my eyes and just actually, I just sat down comfortably on a couch. I don't remember if the back was straight or not. I closed my eyes and I just observed the anger within me. So I
Mm-hmm.
observed the thoughts that were running through my mind. So in this particular case, one of the maids had done something I didn't like. So I'd just spoken to her very angrily. So now my mind, thoughts were racing inside of my head. Why did she do it? What should I have said instead? Oh no, I shouldn't be that mean, because she was also crying, right? Because I'd been really hard on her.
Mm-hmm.
So there was guilt, and then there was like, no, she shouldn't have done that. This is what I'll do in the future. All these were thoughts running through my head. So I
Mm-hmm.
decided to just sit down and let the thoughts run. Okay. And then I decided to feel what's happening in my body, right? So I realized the entire body was contracting,
Mm-hmm.
right? The heart was contracting. And actually I realized that, oh, and there was the flaring, of course, at the corner of the noses.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that the thought came to me that this anger is actually killing me.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just, once I realized that, right? Once I realized that, my behavior naturally changed. Before, I'd always been told, don't speak to people in anger, be gentle. None of that stuff had ever worked. They were just rules told to
Mm-hmm.
me by some expert.
Right.
But when I realized that anger is, on an experiential level, by observation, that anger is actually, forget about the other person, it's bad for me. I
Mm-hmm.
can feel it literally killing me. That was the beginning of, of the change. And I found my own ways of dealing with my own anger, right? No need to read a book about it. I just found my own ways. In fact, I began to like, for instance, I found a way to neutralize the anger and not let it like take me over for, let's say, weeks or months.
Mm-hmm.
Before that could happen, I could remain pissed off, hold a grudge for like a month, 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead, what I did this time is I learned that every emotional state is temporary, right?
Yes.
So I learned that if I sit down and observe my anger, eventually the anger subsides, right? So I got it,
Yeah.
and I don't have to be angry for the entire day. Maybe I'll
Exactly.
be angry for 30 minutes, an hour and a half. I
Mm-hmm.
just sit down, observe it, and it's diffused.
Yes.
I'd never had such a tool before. And basically, I've done nothing. All I did was sit and observe.
Right.
And then later, these observations led me to become more familiar with anger.
Mm-hmm.
I could now predict situations that will make me angry and take precautions before
Mm-hmm.
it happens. Things like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
so at the time I was thinking of running a business, and so I thought, well, I want to do a business in the area of human suffering.
Mm-hmm.
But I was always wondering, like, what should be the core of it, or how should it run? And then it suddenly hit me: why not make it observation?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So gradually I realized, no, let's make the core. Since observation has transformed my life, transformed my relationships, transformed everything about me, why don't I create a company that shows people how to deal with their own stress by observing it for themselves? So this
Yes.
was one of the triggers of it, but there were a couple of other things that brought me to this point.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I'm just sitting here in amazement because you've described a very similar process that I've learned in, a 3-year program I've been in. and it's how to sit with your emotions, how to observe your emotions, how to observe your thoughts, how to observe what's happening inside of you, and taking responsibility for our own triggers, and realizing that anytime we have an emotional trigger and we notice that we're fearful, we're angry, we're frustrated, annoyed, any of those emotions start to come up, it's a reflection about us more so than the person that triggered us.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. This is the first realization, right? This is the beginning, is that I am the cause of my own stress,
Yes.
right? In society, we are taught that external events are the reason why we are angry or sad or feeling pressurized, that our stress is caused by some external situation.
Mm-hmm.
But if you pay a little attention, you realize, if you make some observations, you'll realize that external things, thoughts, I also consider thoughts to be external,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I'm not really my thoughts. Thoughts are also the outside. But
Yes.
external situations are just triggers.
Mm-hmm.
But the
Exactly.
actual emotions are generated by me,
Yes.
and they result from my own inability to handle my own thoughts and emotions.
Mm-hmm.
It's really an expression of incompetence, right? Because the same, right? So, sorry, what?
So did you just say emotions are an expression of incompetence?
No, no, no. I'm saying that. Um,
I misunderstood. So could you
mm, mm,
clarify that, please? Because I'm like, wait, I think you lost me.
very good, very good. No,
Yeah.
what I'm saying is that if someone, let's say you insult me right now, right? Call me a loser. All right, you just
Loser.
call me a
I don't
loser.
really mean that. That's hard to say, but loser.
It's fine. It's fine. It's just an example, right?
Yeah.
So you call me a loser, and then I get angry,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or I don't know, I get depressed as a result.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I'm depressed or angry is because I'm incompetent at handling my own thoughts and emotions.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. And so if I were really to call you a loser and you did get angry, that could be indicative that it touches on a belief system, on something that you believe about yourself too. Because if you didn't have some sort of belief that maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe she's right, maybe I am a loser, then there would be no emotional response at all. It would just be like, why is she calling me that? I know I'm not a loser.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
It's going to be something like that. It's going to be, Jennifer should never insult me, right? I should never be insulted, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or like, she should respect me, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's beliefs like that that make it so that when you insult me, I feel terrible. I feel angry. You're like, I'm about to blow up right now.
Mm-hmm.
Is, you see, like, left to my own devices, any human being left to their own devices. Okay, let's put it this way: every human being wants to be happy and joyful.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we do.
Nobody wants to be miserable. No one wants to be angry, sad. It's just the reason they're miserable, the reason they're not happy is because they don't know how to create happiness and joy within themselves.
Mm-hmm.
If people
Yes.
knew how to do that, they would not ever pick misery, fear, anxiety, none of that
Right.
stuff.
Right. And that's an important point, because happiness comes from within. And Western culture, I can't speak for, the Democratic Republic of Congo. But for sure here in the Western world, where I see what I observe, there are a lot of people who are trying to find happiness outside of themselves. So if I just go buy this thing, or if I can live in that neighborhood, or if I can buy that car, or if I can, date that person or have that relationship, it's always something outside of them that they think is going to make them happy. And then they get it, and maybe there's temporary happiness. And then a few months later, if you still haven't addressed your own issues, wherever you go, there you are. So if you don't deal with yourself, that misery is going to keep creeping back into your life.
Yeah, I think basically the situation has been set up so that you fail either way.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, like, I think there's this guy called Eckhart Tolle, right? So he
Mm-hmm.
wrote one of his books. He wrote something where he said there's two ways to be miserable. One is to get exactly what you want.
Mm-hmm.
The other way is to not get what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Both of those create misery. If you don't get what you want, of course you're miserable. I don't have what I want.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get what you want, you're thinking of getting more. So you're
Yes.
miserable also, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the way not just in the United States. I've been to various parts of Africa. Pretty much any society I've ever been in, it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
People always believe that their own internal state is really caused by an external event.
Right.
So that's just common, and that's a setup for misery either way.
Yeah, and it does. It seems like it doesn't matter who I talk to and where in the world they're from. That's part of the human condition. Is thinking that happiness comes from somewhere else, but it really comes from within.
That's right. Yeah, it comes from. I don't even know where it comes from, because certainly not the outside, right? Obviously. And because once I was trying to figure out who I am, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was running such an exercise. So I realized I'm not my thoughts, okay? I'm not the physical body, isn't it? Because the physical body is an accumulation. And the body has changed dramatically ever since I was a kid. I'm still here, the body is changing. I'm not the body. I'm not my own thoughts. And I'm wondering, where is inside and where is outside?
Right.
So thoughts are outside, the body is outside, the head is outside. So where is inside? Right. So one of the realizations also is that certainly the joy is not coming from outside. I am creating the experience is not coming from outside. I am creating it for myself, but I don't know how or even where. I don't know where I am, you see. This is also part of the realization.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm curious, whenever you work with your clients, are your clients receptive to the observe method? I mean, do they easily go into this, or do you find resistance with your clients?
Oh yeah. So typically, I mean, when I'm working with a client, right? So I work as a relationship rescue coach. So when I'm working with a client, I don't directly try to talk to them about the observe approach, or you should observe. I don't do that. Instead, what I do is I just help them on a practical level to tackle their problem. And of course, I'm applying the observe approach, but I don't require them or even tell them to do so, right? So someone comes up and they say, okay, which was one of the a recent one. I'm 42 years old. My husband doesn't love me anymore. I want him desperately to have sex with me, but he won't. An issue like that, So, and I mean, every time I go out with him, he's looking at other younger girls, calling them sexy, but I feel really bad about it. Something like that. So when a client mentions something like that, what I do is I get them to look at the reality of the situation. That's all. And I don't tell them they need to. We just look at the facts of it. What is the nature of man? Why is he doing what he's doing? Right? Why are you reacting the way you are? We just look at the facts of the situation. And so I'm transmitting the observe approach to them, but not directly.
Okay.
And the idea is that later on, first, here's the idea. Let's say I have a headache, and the headache is coming from the fact that there's some problem with my spine. Let's say I'm just making it up, all right?
That could happen. I have a history of body work, so a problem with the spine or a restriction in the spine could absolutely feed into headaches.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a headache, and it's because of my spine, but I don't know that. Maybe I have a really bad posture, but I don't know that. If I go to the doctor can't start talking to me about the spine. I'm not going for the spine. I'm going for the headache. If the doctor tells me that curing my spine will cure my headache, now I pay attention to the spine. But initially, I'm just coming, my headache needs to go. And whatever it takes to end the headache, I'm going to listen to that.
Yeah.
So the observe approach is the method, but it's not why clients are coming to me. Someone is coming to me because their marriage is breaking down. Right? So I deal with the problem in the marriage, right? And then by doing that, they begin to look at the method begins to sneak in. The spine comes in. The observe approach comes in.
Yeah. Yeah. It's starting to see where the problem lies, because a lot of times the problem is or the cause is not where you feel the symptoms.
Yes.
And
So
and yeah, I was going to say that's true in the physical body, but it's also true in relationships. And that's
yes.
pretty much what you just described.
Yeah. It's first,
Yeah.
the most important thing, first of all, is just people are not coming to me because they want to know the root cause. They just want their problem to go away.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's the beginning. First, solve their problem practically
Mm-hmm.
before talking about where am I? Am I here? Am I not? Do I exist? Am I the
Yeah.
body?
Right.
Someone has a broken relationship. They don't give a crap about that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Right. And at the same time, those are important considerations as to why the relationship might be broken in the first place.
Sorry, I didn't get the last idea.
Oh, those could be important considerations as to why the relationship might be broken in the first place. Because if we don't know who we are and we're always looking to our partner to define who we are,
Yeah.
then yeah. And so what you're talking about going inside and figuring out who we are, and that that goes back to a lot of us come out of childhood truly not knowing who we are, because we have parents or guardians or friends, teachers at school who try to shape us and mold us into what they want us to be. And as children, a lot of times we listen to them. We try to be what our parents or our guardians or teachers or whoever those adults are that we look up to as children. We try to be what we think they want us to be as kids. And if we don't change that behavior in adulthood and really discover who we truly are, and if we spend our adulthood continually trying to be who other people want us to be, yeah, we're going to be miserable, horribly miserable.
Yeah, it's a guaranteed. See, like, yes, this is the tool that parents use and the entire society uses to make you, to mold you into a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, I sit down and I imagine what the society expects of me.
Mm-hmm.
What does my father expect of me? And the funny thing is, it might not even be what my father expects. I can imagine to myself that if I change careers and do something else, my dad will be so pissed off.
Mm-hmm.
When in reality, maybe he doesn't even care, or he would be perfectly fine with the new career. So
Right.
part of it is what they want me to be, and the other part is what I imagine that they want me to be.
Exactly. That's
All
another
of
bingo.
right, all of those create an image, right?
Yes.
They create like a sort of mask that I need to wear in
Yeah.
order to get through life.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that acting is hard work.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, I mean, it becomes too heavy, this mask.
Mm-hmm.
I have to smile all the time, even if I don't want to smile. I have to be gentle and kind to people, even if I want to scream at them. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, this mask becomes too heavy, and then this creates misery, right?
Yes.
Because we can't express things that we want to express.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yes, exactly. And that is so, so important. So important. And it doesn't matter where you're from, where you live. It's just part of the human condition, I think, is to become aware of exactly what you're talking about so we can shift our internal state and not suffer so much inside of ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, if you left it to me, I'd like the final solution, like the solution where it doesn't matter what happens, I'm totally fine. Or like I'm joyful and happy all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Joyful and calm and joyful all the time, ecstatic. Of course, the reality is that I don't know how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
How to be joyful all the time.
Yeah.
So as a result, right now, I just, at the moment, as I try to figure that out, at the moment, currently the focus is on, well, okay, at least if I can't get rid of the mask, how can I be as least burdened as possible by it?
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
I can't be totally free. Can I become a little freer at least?
Yeah.
As I
Yep.
work my way to total freedom.
Right. Right. And honestly, though, do you really think it's even possible to be happy and joyful all the time? Because circling back to what you were talking about at the very beginning, life is a balance of order and chaos. And sometimes that chaos takes us out of our joy and happiness for a period of time. And it's just as important to experience some of those times whenever we do suffer with things like grief and anger or fear and shame and guilt. There can be a good purpose to feel some of those emotions, because once you get to the other side of it and you realize, just like you described with the anger, you can sit with your anger and maybe in 30 minutes it passes through you and you're back to good again. And if you can do that for 30 minutes and come back to peace, you've just built your capacity. You've just added resilience to your life, into what you can handle and what you can manage. So I see value in a lot of these emotions that here in Western culture, oh my gosh, if you express anger, there are some people who are on this positivity movement and they'll jump down your throat because you're not positive all the time. I'm like, okay, you're not my people. You're not my tribe.
Oh no, yeah.
Yeah,
I
because
mean, I actually,
yeah, I can't deal with the forced positivity movement. It has to come naturally, or it's not me.
yes, that's right. Actually, I mean, I made a video a while back for my YouTube channel called "To Hell with Positive Thinking." So my mailing list, like it was like a lot of
Yep,
engagement from my mailing list when I published the video, which was
yep,
shocking to them, for a very provocative title,
yeah,
but it contains truth in it.
yep.
Uh, yes, because I mean, it's important to face problems,
Hmm.
right? So what I was describing was that positive thinking is actually a way to evade, escape from facing realities, problems,
Yes, yes,
right?
yes, yes. It's
Is there
spirit. We call it spiritual hijacking, or that's what I call it. Yeah.
instead of like, look, I'm angry right now, or like I'm feeling sad and depressed. Instead of observing my sadness and depression and allowing myself to feel it and seeing if there are any lessons within it, I start to like, let's say, repeat a mantra in my head. I am
Hmm.
happy and successful. I'm happy and successful.
Hmm.
Right. So I haven't dealt with the sadness and the depression, which
Hmm.
means that I didn't learn a single thing from them, which means that these emotions will come back, will take me over later, because I
Yes.
never learned anything about dealing with them.
Exactly. And I want to point out what you just said, like experiencing your emotions, the way you're describing it, you absolutely learn lessons from them. And that is so important because the lesson is individual for each of us. I can't tell you what the lesson is that you're going to get from your anger or your grief or your fear or your shame. I can't tell my clients what their lessons are going to be, but I can certainly sit there and hold space with them and hold a safe space while they experience their emotions.
Oh yeah,
And that's exactly what you're describing. I love it.
yes, it's something I like to say is like, there are certain problems that you can outsource.
Hmm.
If, for instance, there's no power except if you're in Congo. Okay, actually, like, well, even here, it's like, if let's say, yeah, let's say my car breaks down. Okay, my car breaks down. I
Hmm.
can outsource the problem of observing the car and solve and fixing it. I can outsource that to a mechanic, right? If my taps aren't working, I can outsource that problem, the solution to it, to a plumber.
Hmm.
However, there are certain problems that cannot be outsourced,
Right.
such as my own anger, my own sadness, right?
Right.
Those, I think, like, evil nature has made it so that you gotta face those yourself.
Exactly.
Even
Exactly.
if, even if you talk to me about the nature of anger,
Hmm.
and I went and attended a 20-day lecture with you where
Hmm.
you were really intense and you're describing things that are real, to
Hmm.
me, they're just a bunch of words.
Hmm.
I'll get a lot of mental concepts, but there'll be no change at all in
Right.
myself. Right? At least not the kind of change I'd experience if I observed and dealt with the anger by myself. Pay
Yes.
attention to it, and the anger itself tells you how to overcome it.
Yes. Yes. And again, that is such a unique experience for each one of us, because even though anger is a universal emotion, what triggers that anger is individual, in each person. It's a unique experience because you could have 100 people who live through the same event, and maybe 10 to 15 of them will get angry, and the other, 85 to 90 won't. How do you explain that if it's not an individual experience on why the anger comes up, which is exactly why what you said is so important. You have to figure out for yourself, what's the lesson in that anger? What's the meaning? What's it trying to communicate?
Yeah. And in fact, like one of the things is when I'm observing the anger, I'm not looking for a lesson in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just observing it. You
Yes.
see, part of the anger is the thoughts that are running through my head.
Mm-hmm.
So the thought that says, what's the lesson in this? That is also part of the problem. I observe that also.
Yeah.
Right? When I'm observing, I'm just observing everything, every thought, including the
Yes.
thought that's trying to fix things. I'm observing all of them.
Yes.
And then just that observation itself
Mm-hmm.
gives me ideas of what I can do.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Because the ideas will come to you. The more quiet and still you can get, and the more in the seat of the observer you can be, the more likely the answers will just come to you and you'll be like, oh, I get it.
Yeah. This is why like this happens whenever we try to solve a problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once you've collected enough facts, once you've grasped the problem, the solution is automatic.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I'm sure you've had this experience before where like you have a problem in business, your business, and you're thinking about it and you can't get anything, and it's such a big problem. And then once you get it, it's obvious. You're like, I can't believe I spent all this time and I wasn't seeing such an obvious thing. And you
Mm-hmm.
try to explain to other people how obvious it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I need to create a sales funnel, of course, right? But now it's obvious. It's always now it's obvious. But after having made the correct observations, the answer is obvious,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, like for example, the reason, let's say, I'm taken over by, let's say, sadness or misery, is
Mm-hmm.
because I don't truly understand it. You see, just like any other sort of problem, the more I look at it, the less control it has over me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I don't know about, of course, in the case of anger or misery, but with any other sort of problem I've seen is that when you observe it enough, eventually the solution is just like obvious. Right?
Yes.
I've experienced this so many times. I studied math in school,
Mm-hmm.
and they'd give us problem sets, very tough problem set. You spend like hours and hours and hours thinking about the problem. And then once you've understood it enough, the solution is obvious.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't believe why did it take me 2 days to do this? But it's how nature works.
Mm-hmm.
Enough observations, and then the solution is obvious.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I love the work you're doing. But, it's brilliant. And I love that you've, figured this out for yourself. Are you by chance teaching this? Are you teaching classes to spread your message to
Mm.
other people?
Oh, so right now what I'm doing is so obviously I have a YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
Typically on the YouTube channel, I make a video every single day tackling like some problem that might be stressing someone out. You
Mm-hmm.
know, my boyfriend just dumped me. What can I do? How can I become more confident?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just experiencing loss. How do I deal with loss? So I make all those videos about the observe approach,
Mm-hmm.
but I help people deal with their symptoms first, and
Yeah.
then I sneak in the observe approach. But I do teach that stuff on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, my mailing list also every week I send out emails, and specifically they're teaching some idea, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the most recent one was about, yes, how to deal with manipulative people,
Mm.
right? So this is the form of teaching I'm doing for the time being, but
Yeah.
I think eventually I'll ramp it up, maybe start an online course, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So, do you mind giving us a couple tips on what was in your article or your YouTube on how to deal with manipulative people? Because I know that's a problem here too. We have a lot of manipulative people in the United States. They kind of run the world, I think.
Yeah. Okay. What did I tell what did I tell the people in the observed community? So what I told them, first of all, we just started by understanding what manipulation is.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea was that to manipulate is really just to like kind of use things in order to achieve a certain desire.
Mm-hmm.
So, and for instance, I mean, even if I'm doing something really basic, like trying to succeed in business, I have to use money, my body, my energy. I have to use or manipulate all those things to achieve my goal.
Mm-hmm.
So usually what I realize is that with people, whenever I'm doing something to achieve my goal, I'm just being strategic.
Mm-hmm.
If someone else is doing something to achieve a goal that's against mine, they're being manipulative.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing I help the community realize is that they are no better than other people.
Mm-hmm.
All of us do things to achieve our goals, to meet our desires.
Right.
The
It's
first
all about
realize,
perception. The
yeah,
strategic versus manipulative, that's perception right there.
that's right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because if someone is like, if let's say I don't know, like my business partner is working with me, telling me stuff that he needs to tell me in order for the business to succeed, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
But if all of a sudden he now starts to achieve another goal of maybe taking all my money, now it's manipulation. You
Mm-hmm.
see. So what I help them to realize is that first of all, you are manipulative also. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You're no better. First of all, accept that you're manipulative.
Mm-hmm.
And those people are not evil. They're also trying to achieve their goal. And
Right.
if you look at them as they are, if you look at what their desires are, then you're better able to deal with them.
Mm-hmm.
But if you
Yeah.
like start thinking he's evil, he's manipulative, how dare he do that? I
Mm-hmm.
trusted him. How could he betray me?
Mm-hmm.
Once you go into this train of thought, you're no longer looking at reality.
Right. And here's what I've
Once
learned
you,
about myself with manipulation.
mm,
Anytime I've been pointing the finger at somebody saying that person's manipulative, he manipulated me, look what happened. It's because I played perfectly into exactly what they wanted me to do. So maybe they
mhm.
were trying to achieve their goals strategically. Maybe there was some manipulation. I don't know. But whenever I catch myself and I realize that I fell into the trap and I did, whether it was a trap or not, but whether if I did exactly what they wanted me to, and you couple that with it wasn't what I really wanted for myself, then I get angry and project that anger at that person and say, oh, look how they manipulated me
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
because I didn't want to take responsibility for my own action of not standing up for myself and saying, no, this is not what I want to do.
Yeah, that's right. It's like refusing to take. It's kind of like refusing to take responsibility.
Yeah.
They
Yep.
manipulated you because you let them manipulate you.
Yeah.
That's also the reality.
Right. Because I wouldn't speak up for myself and I wouldn't say no. It was more important to me to be liked or to fit
Right.
in. So I did something that compromised my own values, compromised what I wanted or didn't want for myself. And then I would project that anger out and then label them as manipulators instead of looking at myself and going, okay, I've got some responsibility in this too. It's time for me to like really step into my power and start saying no whenever I mean no, instead of saying yes just to be accepted and accepted by other people.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's correct.
Hmm.
Yes, and right. So there's many aspects to it. It's one of the
Yeah.
things I've been learning, not just about manipulation, but I realized that all my life I had developed a sort of, I never really looked at things as they are.
Yeah.
So I, I mean, I always like try to interpret myself as better than others or
Hmm.
less than others. Like I treated some people I view them as superior, and others I view them as inferior.
Hmm.
And all of these things distort vision. And
Yes.
yet, in order for me to make the best decision, in order for me to get the best possible outcome, I need to be as based in reality as possible,
Yes.
right? If like I look up to somebody, and let's say I don't know, Obama comes here, like let's say Obama comes to the room where I'm recording right now, right?
Hmm.
Immediately when I look up to him,
Hmm.
that's going to distort everything I do. For instance, everything he says, I'm going to interpret as correct, let's say.
Hmm.
Uh, and then basically, what's also going to happen is my palms are going to start sweating, and then I'm
Hmm.
going to become uneasy, and then I might end up performing way less than I normally do. I'll
Hmm.
never see the man for who he is.
Hmm.
Let's say he comes here and he has intentions for me, but I have a positive attitude towards him. Now I'm
Hmm.
unable to see the bad intentions because my vision is so distorted.
Right.
So yeah, and this is also observation. I want to see
Yes.
things as they are, no better, no worse.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So I think you're doing a really, really good job at kind of really picking apart some of these situations that just in our average everyday life, we gloss over and don't even pay attention to. And I love that you're pointing out how important it is to pay attention to some of these moments that really have a lot more meaning in our lives than we give them credit for.
Oh yeah. So this is something I was mentioning. I mean, there was a video I made. A friend had requested it, and I was talking about how usually people need a catastrophe, something really huge, in order to take things seriously,
Yes.
right? The example I was using was, let's say you're like, the sink. Let's say the sink in the bathroom, right?
Hmm.
Let's say I didn't close the tap very well, so that there was just one drop was leaking,
Hmm.
right? And let's say the hole for the sink, I plugged it so that the
Hmm.
water can't flow. Okay, it
Yep.
can't like drain. The water
Right.
is just being held. If I'm someone who's not very perceptive or doesn't pay attention to small details or
Hmm.
small moments that are insignificant, I'll just say, it's just a drop,
Uh-huh.
no big deal, right? So I'll have to wait for the water to flood and my house to flood before I
Hmm.
realize it's a major problem. A catastrophe has to happen. It has to be
Right.
a big moment where I've lost control, right? But I
Hmm.
was saying this is actually kind of foolish to wait for things to go totally out of hand or things to be so intense
Hmm.
before paying attention. The
Yes.
really smart person would just see, okay, the thing is plugged. This drop is already a problem. I got to solve the problem now,
Hmm.
right? So whenever I feel, even if I feel a little bit of irritation, I
Hmm.
don't have to wait until I've gone into a full-blown episode where I'm insulting everybody and we're fighting. I don't
Right.
need just the slightest irritation is enough
Hmm.
for me to pay attention. That would be like a sign of intelligence that
Yes.
I can deal with things while they're still small.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And oh, that's brilliant. Thank you. I love it.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Christian, we're kind of winding down on time here. So, what is the best way for our listeners to find you or follow you? What's your preferred method of contact?
Okay. So that's going to depend on why you're contacting me. So, for
Hmm.
instance, if you just have a question that you'd like me to answer,
Hmm.
uh, or maybe you're contacting me to let me know of other podcasts I can speak on, something like that,
Hmm.
then what you do is you just go to my website. You'll be able to add the links, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you
Yes.
just go to my website, observe.host,
Hmm.
and click on contact, and then you'll be able to contact me that way.
Okay.
Another way, right. So another way to contact me is this. If you like the ideas that I'm sharing and you want to engage with me on the level of these ideas,
Hmm.
then one thing you can do is just enter my name, full name, into YouTube, and that will give you access to my YouTube channel. So if you
Okay.
comment on my daily videos, then I'll be able to comment back. I reply to those messages.
Okay.
Uh, and the final way to contact me is this. Let's say that I work as a relationship rescue coach.
Hmm.
So let's say that if right now you're at a very low point, right, and you feel that your relationship is breaking down, you're
Hmm.
worried that your partner is going to end it, or you're thinking of ending the relationship yourself,
Hmm.
and you need help with that, then I'm offering for a limited time only. You can contact me for a relationship rescue coaching session, right?
Okay.
What we'll do in the session is get a crystal clear vision of the
Hmm.
kind of relationship you'd like to have.
Hmm.
We'll figure out precisely what is sabotaging your relationship, why is it breaking down, and you leave the session renewed, re-energized, and inspired to finally create the kind of relationship you want, or
Hmm.
know if it's time to end the relationship, right? So if you want to contact me for that reason, then just go to, again, observe.host, click on contact, and just send a message, and a member of the Observe team will get back to you to schedule this free relationship rescue coaching session.
Okay, perfect. And do you work with people over a distance like we're talking now via Zoom calls?
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
Okay.
it's all like all online. Yes, typically video call via Zoom, Skype, or Facebook. Yeah.
Okay, so you literally can work with people anywhere in the world.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I live
Okay.
here, but none of my clients is from here.
Yeah. Okay.
People in Congo don't, they speak French, not English. My
Yeah.
clients are English speakers.
Yeah,
Don't have
right?
the internet.
Well, you can't. I've always heard you can't be a prophet in your own town.
Yeah,
So,
that's right. Actually, my family thinks I'm crazy and wasting my time. So
yeah,
there you
right. See,
go.
you
My
can't
mom
be
is
a
like,
prophet in your own hometown.
no, no,
So,
no, no. Mom is like, what are you doing? What is this stuff? It's like this business doesn't make any sense to me. So yes, but thanks to the
yeah.
internet, I can live in a village and work with people anywhere on the planet.
Yes. Yeah. And it's brilliant. I mean, you've naturally just kind of tapped into, some really powerful techniques that some of us are spending 3 years in courses, learning how to work with this. Yeah. So it's brilliant. So it's brilliant. I love it. So Christian, before we finally log off today, do you have any final tips or bits of wisdom to leave with our listeners?
Okay. One thing I can leave with you is something called the observe approach. It's a 3-step process you can use to deal with any problem that's stressing you out right now.
Mhm.
If you have a problem that is stressing you out, first step is just observe it. The second step is write down facts about the problem, not what you think, not your interpretation. Right? I'll always be a loser. This is how I've always been. My grandmother was right about me. None of that stuff. All right, just the facts. What's happening?
Mhm.
Observe, step 1. Step 2, just record the facts. What's
Mhm.
happening? And if you record enough facts, you'll know the correct way to act will come to you, and then
Mhm.
just act upon that.
Mhm.
So if you apply this process, you could deal with like a practical problem on the outside level in your business, in your family, in your relationship, but you can also use it for internal type problems.
Mhm.
Strong emotions, fear, anxiety, all of that stuff.
Mhm. Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Christian. It's been an honor to have you with us today.
Yeah, you're welcome. I've been very excited to talk to you.
Yeah, and the connection held. Yay.
Yes, the connection held. Yeah.
I'm so excited. Well,
Yeah.
thanks again for being on the show. And for all of our listeners, again, check out my website at jenniferwhitaker.com. You'll find my player. And again, if you haven't signed up for my weekly newsletter, that's where you're going to get information about all of my podcast episodes. You'll learn a little bit more about this episode with Christian and also some past episodes. And that's where you'll find out what else I have going on in my life. So for all of you who are watching or listening, I will see you all next week on Yes and.
We have just concluded another episode of the Yes and podcast with Jennifer Whitaker. For additional resources, please visit our website, jenniferwhitaker.com. Leave a review if you enjoyed the show and find it useful. Until next time, continue challenging conventional thinking and keep moving forward.